Hi, my name is Adam Silver, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to validate a product concept and a few other interesting pieces of wisdom, product wisdom. Okay, so this was a question that somebody asked me many years ago when I was in a job interview. It was a head of engineering for a large technology company, and obviously I was keen to try and get the job. And this was the question that he asked me: How do I determine whether or not to proceed with a product? It was interesting because I'd never had any formal product management training, and although I'd been in product management for already 10 years by that time, and I had never been asked this question before. I just kind of learned things as I went over the years. And so I thought about it for a minute, and I got up to the whiteboard and I grabbed a pen. And what I drew up is what follows, and I'll take you through it as I described it. So when you start the process, there's a product idea. There's an idea, either an idea that you've had or an idea that somebody in your company has had. And your job as the product manager is to validate whether this product is worth pursuing or not. And so the way that I described it is you have a bunch of stuff that you need to look at outside your company. And then you have a bunch of stuff you've got to look at inside your company. So let me take you through what I call the external data points. So external data points include talking to customers. The best way to validate new product ideas is to talk to the customers that are actually going to use the product. And hopefully you've got some way to access those customers in an unfiltered way. Fortunately, when I started my career, I actually started my career in sales. So I had some good customer relationships when I transitioned into product management. And so I was able just to literally call customers up and go and meet them and talk to them as I was kicking around new product concepts and new product ideas. But the very best thing to do is to get unfiltered customer information, customer feedback about new product concepts, and just to talk to them and see how they react to different product ideas. The other thing, obviously, you can do is look outside in the marketplace and see what other companies are doing. And you need to be a little careful with that because sometimes you'll find that there are other companies out there that have product ideas similar to yours and they're ahead of you. Doesn't necessarily mean that your idea is a bad idea and it's not worth pursuing, because in some situations the total available market for a given product category is big enough that there can be lots of players, and you have the opportunity to still participate and bring some unique value to your product category. Other thing you can do, obviously, is read published market research. Depends on the market that you're in. Sometimes I found during my career that some of the stuff that we were getting into was so new that there was no published market research. So that was difficult. But in some areas, in many areas, there's lots of good published market research that's worth reading and studying. The other thing that I did also is the guys that write the research, the analysts, that whole community is a very worthwhile community to get connected to. And if you can build relationships with the analysts that cover the product categories that you're involved in, that's always a really useful thing to do. They're usually really smart people, got some really interesting ideas. And if you can build relationships with those people, it's very worthwhile doing that. They'll also want to build relationships with you because the way that analysts get their information is by talking to companies that are in the market. So it's a very mutually beneficial relationship if you can build those relationships. And I still have relationships, good dialogues with a number of analysts that were in the markets that I participated in. Market dynamics in general are always a good thing to have a very clear understanding of. Who's doing what are the general trends in the market, what's going on, what's the direction that things are going. it's often difficult. You can't see the forest for the trees sometimes. So it's always good to take a step back and try and look at things from a big picture perspective. Talk to other people in your company as well, and see what their thoughts are about where the market is going. Trends in technology. This is particularly important when you're doing hardware technology products, which is what I did for most of my career. Technology trends, the best way to understand technology trends is to build close relationships with your technology suppliers. In my case, I did a lot of video technology, so I built relationships with the companies in the semiconductor industry that were building the bones or the building blocks of cameras and other products like that. And they were obviously very keen to come and talk to me because they saw me as a potential customer. But it's very interesting to build relationships with those suppliers. Don't just leave it up to your purchasing department to have those relationships. Partner up with your purchasing department. Ask them to connect you with some of the product managers at those companies to get their perspectives on where the technology is going. And then channel insights is also extremely helpful. And you'll get your channel insights by building relationships internally with your sales organization, and leveraging those relationships to talk to your distribution channel, whether that be multi-tier distribution or direct to customer or whatever it is. Understand how your product gets to your customer and get insights from the people who are working in those channels. So those are all the external data points. Let's move to the internal ones. Probably first and foremost is the core competency of your company. It's always really helpful to understand what is the company good at. If you come up with product ideas that are far outside of your core competency, it can often be very difficult and can sometimes end in difficult situations. I remember when I was at GoPro and the idea was discussed internally originally for us to get into the market for building a flying camera, a camera connected on a quadcopter. And that project actually was one that I was involved in at the very beginning. It didn't end well. You may know that story. But that was primarily because flying vehicles was not something that was a core competency of the company, and it took a long time to build that expertise. And we did actually have some very smart guys, but we unfortunately wasn't able to come together. So just be aware that coming up with great new product ideas that check a lot of boxes, that's one thing, but actually making sure that you've got the expertise inside your company to make those things is another thing altogether. Understanding very clearly what the executive staff at the company expects from this product. That's always a really good thing to do early on in the process. And again, build relationships with your executive staff, not just your direct manager and that person's manager, but try and network a little bit with your e-staff in the different functional areas. I always like to try and build a good relationship with the financial organization, the chief financial officer and the financial staff. Always a good thing to do. They're in control of the money at the end of the day and budget. But they also can bring very interesting perspectives, and they can usually help you with the financial modeling of your product concept, and very helpful people to build relationships with. Roadmap fit and positioning. This is a really important one. You want to make sure that the product that you're thinking about, the product idea that you have, fits neatly in the product roadmap that you have. Road mapping is a very complex process oftentimes, and it's dynamic too. I used to think early on in my career that you set the roadmap and then that's it, but in fact road mapping is something that happens on a pretty dynamic basis. So you just need to make sure that the new product that you're proposing, fits very much in with the rest of the stuff that you have on the roadmap. ROI, it's kind of basic nuts and bolts product management stuff. I'm not going to talk too much about that, but obviously you need to make sure that what you're proposing and how much it's going to cost to develop will give a good return on investment. I used to do a 5-year P&L for the product category or the new product that I was doing, and just keep it pretty simple, pretty high level, and just show this is how much money we need to invest to build this thing, this is how long it's going to take to build it, this is how much we can sell it for, these are the gross margins we're going to get, you know, and this is how much money we're going to make. I would try and keep things pretty simple. Relative priority is very helpful to understand and can save you an immense amount of frustration. Understand inside your company the product category that you're working on. Understand if that's viewed as a key product category or a periphery product category. It's helpful to understand that, you know, if it's a periphery product category, it doesn't mean that you're any less of a person. It just means that you know, if things have to be reprioritized, you're gonna help. It's gonna help to understand, relatively speaking, where your product lies in relation to the other products. Ability to execute is another key metric that you need to understand when you're thinking about a new product concept. Can you get it done? Do you have the resources to get it done? Do you need to bring in additional resources? How much is that going to cost? So that's a very important area to consider as well. And finally, I've got sales team buy-in. This is a really important one as well, because at the end of the day, you can go off and develop a fantastic new product, and the product team can be all excited about it, and the exec staff can be all excited about it. But if the sales guy, the guy that's actually got to sell it, you know, if it's not going to help him make money, sales guys usually pretty much motivated by money, then he's not going to be excited. He or she's not going to be excited about it. And so it's important to, again, build relationships with your sales organization, and you will find that will help considerably. It's interesting, as I'm going through this with you, I realize that I keep talking about building relationships. And one of the things that I think new product managers may overlook when they're starting off in their careers is the value of building relationships, both internally and externally. So I would encourage you to think about who you need to interact with to help be a successful product manager, help yourself be a successful product manager. So once you have thought about all of these things, the most important thing that you then need to apply to all of this stuff is gut feeling. One of my favorite expressions over the years is operation successful, patient dead. It's kind of a little morbid, especially in these times. But operation successful, patient dead obviously means that you've done all of the nuts and bolts work, you've followed the process, you've read all the reports, you've done all the research, you've done all these things, and you're pursuing this new product idea. And yet, without applying the gut feeling, the gut check to the idea, you could well end up with a failure, which obviously you want to avoid. So gut feeling is a very, very important factor. And frankly, many entrepreneurial businesses, the gut feeling is probably the area that has the most weight and overrides all of this other background work that you may do. So be aware that, especially if you're in an entrepreneurial, a new startup environment, especially if you have a charismatic CEO who likes to just go with his gut or her gut, be aware that gut feeling may well be the thing that overrides everything else when it comes to making decisions about products. So you've done all of those things, and that way, you know, you can come to a go or no-go decision. So this is the little diagram that I ended up drawing in that job interview with that head of engineering. And it was quite a few years ago, and I've remembered it. After the job interview was done, I scribbled it all down and because I looked at it and I thought, oh, that's actually quite good, quite helpful. So I hope that you guys can get some value out of this. I certainly have over the years. Okay, a couple of other things to share with you. I always ask new product managers in my teams, what kind of product manager are you? And what I mean by that is it's important to understand the value that you bring to the organization. Specifically, are you more of a visionary product manager? In other words, you like to come up with the big picture ideas, but you're not so keen on digging down into the gnarly details. Are you more of a tactical product manager where you like to get a vision from someone else, maybe from an executive in your organization or the CEO, and you want to go and work all of the details to figure out all the tactical details? Big picture thinker, attention to details. What type of product manager are you? It's really important to understand what your style is as a product manager. And specifically, that's useful because you can, once you understand what type of product manager you are, you can supplement your skills with skills from other people to get them to challenge your ideas and the approaches that you want to take towards a given category, and to kind of fill in the areas where you lack strength, frankly. I was more on the visionary big picture side of product management, and it took me a long time to recognize that. I just wasn't great at all of the gnarly details. But once I recognized that, I brought people in who had really good skills on the tactical and the details, the finer details aspects of things, and they challenged me. And it was a very symbiotic relationship. It worked very, very well for me. So understand what type of product manager you are. It will help you in the long run. And finally, buy-in. Buy-in is very important. And especially if you're a visionary product leader, you get very attached to your ideas and you get very passionate about your ideas. And it's really important early on in your product process, before you get too focused on this is the greatest idea, the company has to do this, it's going to be fantastic, it's going to bring in so much revenue, blah, blah, blah. Take time and talk face-to-face with the key stakeholders in your company and understand their perspectives. It doesn't mean that your idea is a bad idea. It just means that as you're going through your thought process about your product concept, it's really helpful to talk to those key stakeholders and see what their perspectives are. Fast is slow and slow is fast. One of my favorite expressions that was shared with me by somebody that was giving me a little bit of career coaching many years ago. And it's really a weird expression, but in fact, what it means is what it says, which is that if you move slowly and you invest the time and you do the things in a more complete way, that will get you to the end result faster than trying to rush through things. Even though you may be super excited about what you're doing and you want to move the needle and da-da-da, and you're in an environment where you're being encouraged to move quickly, sometimes it's a good idea just to sit down with a blank piece of paper and a pencil and just scribble out what you need to get done and do it that way. And this is one of my favorite pieces of wisdom, I guess I would call it. It's very important to be passionate about what you're doing. And I'm sure as product managers, we're all passionate about what we do. We love products. We love creating new product ideas and concepts. But sometimes you can get so attached to what you're doing and so attached to your vision that you lose the perspective. And it's important to learn the idea or learn the concept of being detached from the outcome of situations. Very difficult thing to do, and something that I struggled with, but it's a very, very useful skill. If you can go into a product presentation with your exec staff, and as you walk in the door, you say to yourself, I am going to be happy with whatever the outcome of this situation is, and I'm just going to present my concept or present my proposal, and I'll do the best job that I can do. And if the decision supports what I'm proposing, then great. And if it doesn't, then that's okay. And we'll go back and we'll come up with some other product ideas or other ways to move the needle. So being detached from the outcome is something that if you can learn how to do it whilst maintaining your passion and your enthusiasm, because you don't want to get apathetic. You don't want to go in and say, well, I don't care what happens, anything can happen. It's a really good skill to be able to do that. And then finally, I would say it's really important to understand when you're pushing water uphill. Sometimes being a product manager can be challenging. Oftentimes it can be challenging. And sometimes it's worth understanding when you're not in the right place. And the value that you're bringing to the organization is not something that is a fit. So just keep that one in the back of your mind. It doesn't mean that you're any less of a product manager. You're probably a great product manager. But it means that the value that you want to bring may be better leveraged somewhere else. So it's a little sort of sad to think about it that way, but sometimes that's just the way it is. So anyway, those are my little summary about my thoughts about product management and the product validation process. And finally, I would say to you all, enjoy your journey. Being a product manager is a wonderful career. And I think that it's very much something that you can enjoy. So good luck, and thanks for watching.